The Story of Ramayana by Valmiki, Part 2. The Story of Viswamitra. Over the course of time, Rama and Bharata, Dasaratha's sons, were born to Kausalya and Kaikeyi respectively. Laksmana and Satrughna were born to Sumitra as twins after she consumed the exquisite payasam on two separate occasions. The sons are typically thought of as fragments of Vishnu in the same proportion as the amount of payasam that their mothers drank, which can range anywhere from a small amount to an enormous quantity. As a result, Rama was half-Vishnu. However, such computations are meaningless because it is mathematically impossible to measure the infinite using finite units. According to what Sruti teaches us, even a small portion of the Supreme Being is a whole and complete on its own. The mantra Om Poornamidam describes this concept. The meaning is that which is whole is likewise is whole, that which has sprung from the total is also complete. When a part of the whole is removed from the whole continues to exist in its entirety. All of the education and experience that are required of princes were imparted to Dasaratha's four sons. Both Rama and Lakshmana, as well as Bharata and Satrughna, had an especially strong attachment to one another's company. It is possible for us to believe that this unique bond resulted from the manner in which the holy payasam was distributed among the king's wives. Dasaratha was pleased to see his four sons mature into strong, honorable, courageous, and lovable young men who also possessed all of the other characteristics associated with princes. Messengers hurried in to tell the king that the famous sage Viswamitra had arrived to meet him on a particular day. While the king was preoccupied with thinking about the marriages of his sons, everyone revered Viswamitra because he was considered the most powerful of all the rishis. The presence of Viswamitra in Ayodhya came as a complete surprise to King Dasaratha, who promptly rose from his throne and moved forward a few paces in order to show due respect to the wise men. Viswamitra was a king who was able to achieve sainthood by subjecting himself to severe sacrifices. He had demonstrated his spiritual abilities a very long time ago by beginning the process of creating another Brahma and a competing cosmos. He had gotten as far as the formation of new constellations before he was persuaded to halt by the entreaties of the varied gods. While Viswamitra was still king, he once led his army on an expedition during which they stumbled upon Vasishta's ashram. The rishi warmly welcomed his royal guest and his large company and provided them all with hospitality so lavish that it left the king wondering where all of the luxurious richness in a woodland hermitage could have come from. When questioned, Vasishta referred to his cow Shabala and claimed that she was the source of an endless supply of food and water. To show his appreciation to the wise men, King Viswamitra replied to him, "You must give me this cow, as she would be more useful with me than she would be with you." The king has a legitimate claim to the ownership of such powerful and wealthy possessions. Now Vasishta was unable to let go of the celestial cow. He provided the king with a number of explanations and pleaded with him not to pursue his request. However, the king's desire to get Shabala, the cow, increased in proportion to the degree to which Vasishtha resisted giving up the cow. When Vishwamitra's attempts to convince the sage to part with the cow by bribery or other means were unsuccessful, he became enraged and ordered his soldiers to take the animal by force. Sabala was confused as to why she was being treated roughly, and she had no desire to leave the sage or his ashrama. She was crying as she tried to figure out how she could have possibly angered Vasishtha so much for him to just stand there and watch as she was being taken away. The cow was able to effortlessly throw off the soldier's pursuit, and she sought safety at the feet of the wise man. The sage, moved by the pathetic cry of his cherished cow, who seemed to him like a younger sister, commanded, "Bring forth soldiers to resist Vishwamitra's men." This was accomplished almost rapidly by Shabala, and the attackers were quickly put down. Vishwamitra, overcome with fury, climbed into his chariot, drew his bow, and rained arrows down on the warriors that were brought forth by the cow. However, the soldiers' strength could not be depleted, and the royal forces were soundly defeated. The sons of Vishwamitra decided to target Vasishtha himself, but they were ultimately successful only in reducing themselves to ashes. After being defeated and humiliated, Vishwamitra immediately gave his kingdom to one of his sons and traveled to the Himalayas to perform tapas and direct his devotions to Lord Shiva in order to get the power necessary to defeat Vasishtha. Lord Shiva was pleased with Vishwamitra's devotion to asceticism and as a result made an appearance in front of him. Vishwamitra's devotion was steadfast and unwavering. Lord Shiva inquired of the king as to the purpose of the performance of tapas. Vishwamitra responded by saying, "If you, Umapati, are satisfied with my devotion, then please bless me with divine arrows and make me the master of every weapon." Shiva replied, "So be it," and then granted Vishwamitra every weapon that was available to the Devas, Gandharvas, Rishis, Yakshas, and demons. Vishwamitra's pride was comparable to that of the ocean, and he believed that Vasishtha had already been defeated. He didn't waste any time and headed directly towards the wise man's house. The disciples of Vasishtha, together with the animals that lived in his ashrama, fled in every direction as they caught a glimpse of Vishwamitra coming closer and closer. The ashrama of Vasishtha was burned to ashes after being struck by the fire weapon wielded by Vishwamitra. Vasishtha was dismayed by the turn of events, but he was adamant about putting an end to the arrogance of the former king. So he confronted him in a composed manner while holding his Brahmadand. Vishwamitra unleashed all of the heavenly weapons he had obtained and fired them at the Rishi, but they were extinguished as they approached the Rishi's staff and were consumed by it. Vishwamitra's fury drove him mad. Only one more weapon remained in Vishwamitra's arsenal, and it was the one that was the most fearsome of them all, the Brahmastra. When he threw it towards Vasishtha, the entire universe became enveloped in darkness, as if a massive eclipse were taking place, and even the immortals shook with horror. However, the dreadful Astra's very essence was absorbed into the Rishi's staff, causing both the staff and the holy men to radiate with the splendor that they had taken in. Viswamitra just stood there in shock. He then admitted his defeat and asked rhetorically, of what use is the Kshatriya's supremacy in arms? This Vasishta, armed with nothing more than a stick, has rendered all of my weapons useless. It is true that Lord Shiva has tricked me. There is no other option available to me besides to follow in Vasishta's footsteps and become a Brahma Rishi. After making this statement, he departed from the field of battle and traveled towards the south in order to engage in more strenuous tapas. Vishwamitra was subjected to dreadful asceticism for a considerable amount of time. His tenacity impressed Brahma, who appeared before him and introduced himself. After informing Vishwamitra that he had advanced to the position of a rishi among the monarchs as a direct result of the tapas that he had performed, Brahma disappeared. Vishwamitra was disheartened to learn that the result of all his penance would merely earn him the title of Raja Rishi. He was not satisfied with anything less than the highest status of a Brahma Rishi, so he committed himself to even more rigorous austerity in order to be recognized as an equal to Vasishta.